Okay, folks, I'm back. It's JB 949 News Now and Stimulating Talk, and I've been waiting for this for a long time. I have a very special guest right in my studio here with the kids, with the audio-video security guard, Phil Marie. Of course, you know that name from the Wheel of Freedom. And I want to welcome Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. Welcome to the show. It's great to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. And I don't think people realize that you stand up the whole time you're doing this show.
I have to, and so does Lee. Lee does half and half. I have to stand up because I'm jumping around and because I'm not terribly comfortable with everything just yet, even though it's been about a year. Because, you know, I'm a state trooper, so this audio, video stuff, and slide this one, touch this one, don't touch that one, that one's going to be green, that one's going to be yellow. The whole thing is daunting sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm able to get through it. So anyway, more about you. You are the 2nd District candidate for the United States Congress.
That's right. Running against Courtney.
You are running against Joe Courtney, and well, it's my pleasure to have you here. I am an avid listener and supporter of your show on Sunday mornings right after Lee's.
Thank you.
It's very informative. I know you've been hitting the Common Core thing, which is another one of these things that I would call a progressive ramrod. It just seems to be flying at us from Obama, from his delegates, and I can't help, Lori, but think that we need somebody that's spirited like you to go to Washington, D.C., to get people's attention, because there seem to be too many people that are comfortable. There are too many people that are just become part of a pack, of a voting group, and you don't really see the people pounding their fist on there. And you, to me, seem to be somebody that's going to go down and get everybody's attention and not just be a go-with-the-flow person.
Well, here's the problem with Washington, D.C. My show has allowed me to live virtually in Washington, D.C. for the past 2 years since I started it. And I really pay attention to the issues that are the bills that are introduced, the laws that are passed, and how they affect the local market, the towns and cities in the 2nd Congressional District. There's 64 of them. Mm-hmm. So we have inner cities like New London, Norwich, Willimantic, and we have a lot of rural towns. So it's a mixture of different interests. But the one thing that's missing in Washington, D.C. is the voice of the middle class and the small business person. And that is what the solution is to all of our problems. I know that you and Lee have been discussing welfare on this show for quite a while now. And the one thing, the key to the solution to that problem that has to be addressed before anything else is the middle class and the small business person. They have no voice. They are strangulated by and oppressed by taxes and regulations, and every law that is passed in D.C., in Hartford, takes another notch out of their belt, in the sense that they are losing their ability to compete. They are closing their doors, the shops, the small businesses, and they are critical to producing jobs. They're the rainmakers. They're the opportunity makers. And they have nothing. They have no voice. Courtney right now, if you go online, you look at who funds Joe Courtney, and it's big unions and it's big corporations. Mom and pop don't stand a chance. So he goes to Washington, D.C., and he takes care of big corporations and unions. Right. That's what he does. So basically, it's all about money. I have to raise a substantial amount of money to run against Courtney. I have a grassroots campaign. I want to be the voice of the middle class in Washington, D.C. I don't care about the money. That's not why I'm going down there. And, I think that there's a lot of issues and reforms that are needed in Washington, D.C., but the way, the methodology, the way it operates is not in the best interest of us.
So how do we get, now folks, if you're just tuning in, it is JB, obviously. I'm here with Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. She's going to be a candidate for the 2nd District for the United States Congress, and we're having a conversation about, well, the important things. Lori, how is it? Because I get frustrated as heck. I walk in the morning for an hour and a half listening to Lee's show, and people call, as they call into my show, and we had somebody the other day, someone of prominence, at a paper that's actually made now, and nobody focuses on this.
In Rhode Island.
It's made in Rhode Island and shipped out.
Right, it's printed in Rhode Island
Actually,
now.
I had somebody come up
And
to
it's
me.
a nonprofit.
Right. I had somebody come up to me the other day that was in a not a high rent district, if you will, and he's been a carrier for a long time, and he told me about how when you fill out your subscription for the paper, you can put down a tip that's supposed to go to the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't seen a tip in over a year. So what bothers me though is this, is that the person who's an editor says, well, I wasn't convinced about Daniel Malloy until I heard his State of the State address. And I gotta tell you, it really sounded fantastic. But I realize everything that he said could be challenged. What the hell is that? I mean, we've got these folks, and Lori, I do this comparison all the time. I think that the mindset of Barack Obama, Daniel Malloy, and Darryl Finizio are synonymous. They're on that same Kool-Aid. They think the same way. Their rationale, and I believe, I don't get mad anymore, it's laughable. Because they expect people like you're a businesswoman in real estate, an industry that has taken some serious body blows. As a matter of fact, today, and you can talk about this, I actually heard today while I was walking that Fannie and Freddie are profitable now, and they're trying to decide what they're going to do with all their profits.
Yeah, they paid back the government.
They paid us all back.
That's correct.
Everything?
Yes, they're
Wow,
paid
that
back.
was done pretty swiftly.
Well, it was done over a period of years, but I mean, it was President Bush that actually, put them in conservatorship.
Okay.
And they were a Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are a semi-public entity. The government controls who their board of directors is. The government has a lot of controls. They receive tax breaks, all kinds of goodies from the government to do the government's bidding.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I almost fell off my seat when I saw Barney Frank say that he understood that it was government policy that created the housing bubble and burst, and not the banking industry. And that is a fact.
Yikes.
That is actually what happened. But he actually admitted it on
Right.
television recently. He was the person that said, in the middle of, right before the bubble burst, he was on television saying, these two entities are solvent. They are, you can take them to the bank. They're just great operations, and they weren't. And so now, Bush put them in conservatorship. They've gone through the process of working through the debt, but the taxpayer paid for all this.
Right.
It came out of your pocket and my pocket. All of our money is going to DC. It's a redistribution machine.
Mhm.
It has to stop.
So in your first 100 days in Washington, D.C., what it like if you had a punch list of things that you want to go down there and jump at and jump into immediately? What kind of things?
Well, I mean, I've got a list, but accountability, it really burns the American public. You wonder why Congress has such a bad approval rating. Well, no one's accountable for anything.
Right.
They can commit, fraud and lie and cheat, and they are never held accountable. But we are.
Right.
There's a problem with that.
Yeah.
And I think honesty and integrity must return to our government, because there's no trust. The American public completely does not trust the lawmakers in D.C. I think that the budget, I'm a fiscal conservative. I really believe that the government is too large. If you go to Washington, D.C., it's booming. There are cranes on every building, the money, the wealth, and it's coming from our pocket.
Right.
We need to keep our wealth locally so we can hire people, go out to dinner, buy cars, and spend it here. And then we'll see our economy recover in the 2nd Congressional District. Let me make it perfectly clear. Connecticut trails the entire country in economic growth. The 2nd Congressional District trails the entire state of Connecticut. We are at the bottom of the bottom, and Joe Courtney does not deserve to be reelected. So when I go down to Washington, D.C., the budget is a big deal for me. I want to keep the money in the taxpayer's pocket. I want to keep the money in small businesses, in the middle class.
Yeah.
We should decide where our money is spent, not somebody in Washington, D.C.
So with the rationale of Barack Obama and that progressive wing, where in reality we know that the rising tide raises all boats, but now the latest thing is, which I guess now suddenly John Boehner has turned the corner, so he's not willing to push through this immigration reform, but income inequality. Last week, when I first
Right.
heard that, I went nuts and I said, well, geez, there's income inequality, but you know, you may live in a 3,000 square foot house. I live in a 1,400 square foot house. Does that mean that, well, because yours is bigger than mine, that I need to get some special federal funding to bust mine out a little bit? I mean,
Absolutely, that's what they're planning.
fair, life isn't fair.
No.
We're all driven in a different way, and I think that, and I mentioned this the other day, and as you know, because you've been listening, we've had a barrage of calls, Lee Elsie in the morning and me in the afternoon, relative to welfare. And it is, and I spoke about it at the top of my show today. They said, well, where did we turn a corner? And I said, well, we turned a corner from Shirley Temple to Miley Cyrus to twerking. We turn a corner from the people that need something to welfare being more of a comfort level for the politician, not for, they don't have any compassion for the person that's needy.
No, it's a trap. Welfare is a trap, but the problem is we're getting back to the middle class and the small business person. We have what Obama calls ladders of opportunity. The fallacy is that the Democrats are providing ladders of opportunity through welfare. That's not true, because you can't have the poor and the rich is what we are getting under Obama. The rich are doing great, the stock market's just humming. The rich are getting richer and richer and richer under Obama because of his policies and the feds and the quantitative easing, what they're doing. But the poor, the ranks of the poor are growing. The middle class is shrinking, that's a fact. And those are the middle rungs of the ladder. If you don't have those middle rungs, you can't climb that ladder. And that is as plain as day. It isn't equal income equality. The word is disparate impact.
I hear you say that.
Very important to understand that. What they want is equal outcomes. Equal outcomes. They have us mapped in the state of Connecticut by skin color. And those are called areas of opportunity for people of color. Anyone who looks at color does not understand diversity. Because you can't look at a person's skin color and understand what's going on in their brain between their ears. You can't.
No, you can't.
But that's how bad our government is right now in terms of forcing. This is all coming down from the NAACP. It's coming down from a very left-wing, socialist, communist ideology, and it's being forced on us through land use and ownership. In the state of Connecticut, this is shocking, and I really want people to understand this. The National Association of Realtors, who had Hillary Clinton as their keynote speaker last convention, the Connecticut Association of Realtors, which is a member of the National, they just put out a policy, 2014. If you go to Connecticut Association of Realtors, you can print out the 2014 policy, and one of the things they say is that they are strongly against any exclusionary zoning. All zoning is exclusionary.
Sure it is.
All of it is. What they're saying is they are buying into this entire disparate impact, buying into the fact that local control and zoning over our land is going to go bye-bye. The feds are going to control everything we do with our land, who owns the land. That's the next step. We have a socialist government. We're a socialist country right now, and communism is at our doorstep. And people need to wake up and understand what's going on.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, it's Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. She's going to be the one that's going to be taking Joe Courtney's place down in Washington, D.C. We're going to continue the conversation in just a second. I'm going to pay a few bills. It's JB 949 News Now, stimulating talk. I'll be right back.